Welcome everybody to the Lure Fishing Podcast. This is episode 14 and this is take 327. Luckily, we were only 2 minutes into the previous episode of episode 14 and I hadn't pressed record on one of the myriad of buttons that we've got around. We've got so many cameras.
There's lots of buttons.
We've got so many assistants, blonde, big buxom, half-naked ladies serving us cups of tea and coffee.
God, I knew that was the truth. I'd be much more likely to come up here rather than do it virtually.
That's the next thing the podcast studio needs.
Yeah.
Just to be, I don't care about woke and politically correct. We need an assistant.
Yeah.
Scantily clad, preferably not male. Right.
What are we talking about?
Ethical lure shopping.
Ethical lure shopping, yep. And more specifically, the rise in popularity of things like Wish, AliExpress, and the new kid on the block, Temu.
I haven't heard of Temu.
You haven't heard of Temu. So if anyone doesn't know these things like Wish and AliExpress and now Temu, basically what they do is they give access to the likes of me and you, direct access to the manufacturers in the Far East, so China, Singapore, places like that, where a lot of the manufacturing of products that we buy from reputable retailers and brands, most of it nowadays is produced in the Far East, just through cost. It makes sense. Now, not all, but some of these products are not developed by these brands anymore. They go to China or to whoever and they tour these warehouses and they pick the products they like and they quite simply just brand them as their own, which allows these companies to do a couple of things. A, they can just then release these lures themselves under a different name, different brand. There's no protection. But what we're seeing more and more of is them actually just straight up copying companies' real design, things they've developed and designed themselves. It's so difficult for these companies to police it because it's all on the other side of the world. And it's quite a moral dilemma when we're in a day and age where a lot of people haven't got a lot of money. They like to go fishing. They like to buy lures. And it's cheaper to buy them directly from China than it is to buy them from the companies that actually develop them.
Do you know what popped into my head as you were talking about this?
Go on.
It was COVID, and
Yeah.
I thought COVID would have stopped this, as in people would have realised that when we had the pandemic the first time,
Yeah.
it completely shut everything down, and you couldn't buy anything. You couldn't buy anything because we realised everything we bought was produced from abroad.
Yeah.
So it started a little movement of buy British, if you remember.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised people have got very short memories and they've forgotten because
I actually think it's got something to do with why it's got so bad, COVID, because home shopping and internet shopping became huge. Like, it was always big, but it grew exponentially in that time because people couldn't go out. So although at the time there was limited what they could buy because there was only so many things being made in certain parts of the world, that habit of online shopping and buying everything online is just huge now. And these manufacturers in the Far East are responding to that by producing these things like Wish and AliExpress and Temu, where people get direct access to like this huge catalogue of things they can sit at home, order for a couple of quid rather than maybe 5, 6, 7 quid from the brand, and just gets dropped off at their door.
So my question to you would be, do you buy off these websites?
Yes.
You heathen.
Well, yeah, but here's where I draw the line. I won't buy a direct copy. So the one that I see quite a lot, the company that seems to get copied a hell of a lot is Kitech, who are a Japanese brand. They spend years and years and thousands of pounds, or hundreds of thousands of yen, developing these lures, which have got a cult following worldwide, like the Easy Shiner, the Swing Impact, and things like that. And they're incredibly popular because they're very effective lures. They're also quite expensive. You know, a packet of Easy Shiners might be 7 or 8 quid, which for a lot of people is a lot of money. And then you've got places like these Wish and AliExpress producing straight up rip-offs, like exactly the same, just moulded from the same, poured from the same mould, Won't be using the same material because Kitec use a really nice biodegradable material, but it will look the same to the average Joe. So you've got all of these sort of things, and then by buying them, you're, in my mind, it's a direct spit in the face to the company that spent all the time and all the money and all the years developing these things to make them as effective as they are. What I will buy is novelty stuff because it's funny, you know, like those baits that Brad Hunt sent us, the Willy crankbaits, things like that. It's funny, you know. No one's really getting hurt by that. I'll buy things like that. I've ordered a few bits recently where I'm going to make some videos. I've got some of that, like because the other thing is it's super cheap. So like I'm going to do, this is all to come in the future, some like cheap versus expensive videos where I take the cheapest thing I could find on Temu and compare it against its counterpart, but the most expensive, and just see where it lands. And I've got some like jointed glide baits for like £1.
So I don't.
No.
And there's two reasons why I don't. Yeah. One is I don't know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
So I like to feel
the
product, know what it is I'm getting. And if I knew I could get this cheaper by ordering from these websites, I would.
Yeah.
I'd put my hand up because things are so expensive.
Yeah.
But I don't because
you're never quite sure.
I'm never quite sure. And also, in my head, I'm thinking the second reason I don't is there's a price for the shipping.
Yeah.
There's a price for the manufacturing. If it's cheaper, the quality's not going to be so good.
Yeah.
And to me, I'd rather spend a few more pennies on the product I want to have the right quality.
And you know it works how you want it to work.
I'll give you a classic example. Nothing to do with lure fishing, but I got some Shimano 4,500 reels downstairs in the man cave that I've had forever for pike fishing, and I just get them serviced.
Yeah.
And because Shimano made a huge mistake with making these reels.
Made them bomb-proof.
Yeah, they just don't go wrong.
Yeah.
And they will last my lifetime.
Yeah.
So to me, value for money is immense, isn't it? It's going to last my lifetime.
Yeah.
Now for lure fishing, for lures that get smashed up and chewed up, I want the right quality lure that's going to get smashed and chewed up in the first place.
Yeah.
And if I have to put a new one on, I'll put a new one on.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. And I think, again, a lot of UK lure anglers are not very good.
Yeah.
These lures are not designed to catch two fish.
Yeah.
They're designed to catch one.
Yeah. It's definitely a UK mentality that lures aren't disposable.
Yeah.
You know, in my mind, especially soft plastics, they're bait. You have to treat them like bait.
Yes.
If they've caught you a fish, they've done their job.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way you sort of. And I know it's expensive. There'll be people screaming at us saying, "I can't afford that."
Don't go fishing then.
Which is fine. I understand it, but then that's not. You know, then
they're not expensive.
You're not, and you're not going to get from it what you should be getting from it if you expect one soft plastic shad to last you 10 fish.
So my big Wolf Creek baits, they are expensive, and I get given them.
Yeah.
I haven't bought a Wolf Creek shad for years for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But I still glue them back together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's different.
Yeah.
So I glue the big baits back together. One, because I don't want to ask Anders and Leaners for stuff, and two, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
So your bigger baits, you can repair them. But I'm talking about the little FFS type lures that Tom makes.
Yeah.
Good God, if you can't afford a packet of those, then that's why you're not a very good lure angler. Yeah. Because you're not applying yourself to the sport.
Yeah.
If you're in it to use cheap stuff because you're too tight, you're never going to grow. Mm-hmm. Again, I give the golf analogy that we did in the last episode. It'd be like me buying a cheap set of golf clubs, crap balls. I'm going to become, at best, way below par golfer. Mm-hmm. So I can't expect to get any better. Yeah. So I think if you want the quality, you've got to buy the original bait, and then you know what you got. Yeah. So I know some people that make their own baits, are very much in the kitchen microwave job. Yeah. And they're using this as a slightly different thing just to get bits and bobs they need. I can understand that. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're spending 30 quid, 40 quid, 50 quid on getting packages from China, just best thing, go down your tackle shop if they've got lures. Go and buy them from there. So you're supporting the tackle shop as well. Yeah,
I think very often if you're going to spend 40 or 50 quid with the likes of one of these distributors from the Far East and China and wherever, spend 20 quid in your local tackle shop. Yeah. They'd appreciate it a lot more. Yeah. And all right, you'll probably get less for your money, but you'll have something that means a lot more to you and the connection you have with the local community. If you're just sitting at home ordering stuff from Asia, you don't really learn anything.
But you're not connecting with people.
No. It's a hard. I really sort of flip flop on this ethically, and whether I even really believe in using these things at all. Because like I said, I do use them, but I sort of draw a line on what I will and won't buy. You know, I won't buy direct copies. I just won't, because I don't think it's right. But I sort of get it, like as because like again, is it ethical for a lure brand or any fishing brand to go to China? Because they do physically do this. A lot of these, like the bigger companies especially, they'll go to China. And like in person, they'll get toured around these warehouses and factories. They go, I like that. Put it in one of our bags. And they've done nothing for the development of that, and they're instantly selling it. Is that ethically right?
No. I think we're talking about the ethics then. So again, I can only use Wolf Creek as an example because obviously I know this firsthand.
Yeah.
So now their factory-made baits are really good, but it's taken them years to get into what is classed as a top-grade factory. Yeah. Their baits were in the next level down, which is still pretty good because in China, it's actually, talking to Martin Green from Daiwa UK, the workers over there are so dedicated to these factories that people need to understand that in China, the setup is that there might be 3 or 4 factories in the town, and one factory might be making silver foil that's used for so many different applications. Could be lining, cool bags. It could be used in other types of applications, tags for clothing, all sorts of things. Another company will be making a type of material. Another factory making zips. Yeah. And then the workers will have moved hundreds of miles and relocated to live in this town to become part of this factory setup. Yeah. And I know during COVID, because they couldn't get the raw materials they needed to produce what they were doing. The ladies, because ladies in particular, were actually sleeping on the factory floors, and they were doing massive hour shifts just to keep the whole thing going. Yeah,
keep the machine moving.
Just to help keep the factories working, so there was money coming in to run the town. Mm-hmm. So this is how it's set up over there, and I didn't know until Martin Green explained it to me. You kind of think, because we have no idea, you kind of think, wow, they've bought into the whole ideology here. Yeah. So going back to the Wolf Creek one, they took him ages to get into the right factory. But now they're in. As long as they keep the orders going, and they'll be at a certain level. So in these factories, also the big orders get prioritised, and the little orders come at the bottom. Yeah. So the big companies that you're talking about, they're playing a game as well. Mm-hmm. They're doing this to keep the orders coming in. Of course, if you think about it, to keep them up the top of the food chain of this factory, because they want to keep these factories churning out the products for them, not for competitors. Yeah. So I won't mention names, but there's a lot bigger European bait manufacturers that totally destroy this because they're in control of it all. Yeah. Their orders are huge. Yeah. And they can can put down the small bait companies. Yeah. So there's a lot of politics behind this as well.
Huge amount of politics, yeah.
So it's a very big picture. But going back to the individual angler, if I was sea fishing, I think I'd have a different mentality. Right. Because I think salt and seawater corrodes things very quickly, doesn't it? Gets wrecked. Yeah. So if I was doing more bass fishing, I think I would find, and also sea fish are green. Yeah. If you think about it. Yeah. Compared to our resources that are getting hammered constantly, I think I would be very hypocritical, and I'd be doing the reverse. Mm-hmm. I think I'd be buying really cheap bass shads off the internet and not really bothered about the quality, because I think I don't need to. Yeah. I might be completely wrong, but I don't know what you think about that.
Well, so I'm going back some now. Probably one of the most popular shads for bass in the UK, and probably sort of Europe as well, is the the fish with 3 eyes, like the team that's in Zandbro. The fish, black minnow, which is an articulated jig head with an offset hook, and all the hooks all within the bait, and it's caught me hundreds of bass, and they're very effective. And the reason they're very effective is the material they're made out of. Material gets torn to pieces really quickly, and you end up the way that the hook sits in them. As soon as it starts getting torn, it's throw away. And when you're getting through loads and loads and loads of them, because you are getting through them a lot, you start getting a little bit frustrated. So this is going back probably 9 years, maybe more. I came across an ad through Facebook with one of these companies selling like rip-offs of these fish black minnows. I thought, I'm going to buy a pack just to compare them. I got them out of the pack and I threw them in the bin because they was useless. The photo looks identical. The hook was crap. The mechanism that articulated the jig head was crap. The material may as well have been cardboard. It was useless. So I just thought, okay, well, I'm just going to use the ones that work because these aren't going to do what I want them to do. Throw them straight in the bin.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only really comparison I've got with saltwater fishing. There is other brands that are cheaper than others, which I do use, like the brand HTO and now Axia, AXIA. They produce a lot of stuff for directly for the UK market, and their lures are a lot cheaper than most others. And one of their top waters, which is the K9, is my absolute favourite. You could give me any top water lure for bass. The Axia K9 used to be formerly known as the HTO K9. Is the best water dog style lure I've ever used. It's about £4 compared to most, which are going to be 10, 11, 15 quid, something like that. For some things like the Pachinko, whatever it is, they're 20 quid, 25 quid. For people getting into bass fish, I don't think you need to think about it as, you can obviously go out and you can buy the expensive lures, and it's fine. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But you don't have to with bass fishing, like you say. I think that you can. There's a lot of stuff that's on the cheaper end which will work just as well. But you also don't necessarily have to go to China to do that. There are other brands that are a bit more affordable.
So in my head, I'm just thinking it's not necessarily the fish destroying it. It's going to get destroyed by the corrosion.
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly.
Because I don't know. I presume.
Yeah. You have to be very conscious of it. It's a bit of a. I'm terrible for it, really. But you do have to. And I do it with reels. So I will buy for my saltwater fishing. 99% of my reels are pen because they are bomb-proof. A lovely light Shimano would be great, but it gets wrecked.
Yeah.
And you have to have it serviced every year. I've got a pen spin fisher, which I've had probably 15 years. I've never serviced it once. It's taken dunks, under salt water. It still works perfectly. It's heavy as all hell because it's all made of metal. So it's really, and it's solid. Whereas a lot of the lighter reels feel lighter in your hand and they're lovely to use, but there's a lot of stuff in that will go wrong because of the nature of that.
When we went off the bass boat with Robin,
Yep.
he had pen reels and
Yep.
those rods, and you could tell they weren't top quality,
Yep.
but you could tell they were of a quality high enough to do the job.
They're functional.
They're functional, and that's the most important. And I was thinking, why has he got these? Because they need to last all year. Yeah.
And I think the best way to describe it is a lot of saltwater, especially the saltwater stuff, you almost want a tool. You don't want a toy. Whereas with a lot of freshwater stuff, you can get blingy stuff, and it's great to use because as long as you're not a complete div and throwing it around, it'll last forever or last for a good amount of time, and it doesn't matter if it's expensive, like a Stella.
I like that. Toy, yeah.
But they can be toys, whereas with the saltwater stuff, you really need something a bit more of a tool.
So let's go on to I got a question. I got a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
So let's use Tom Moy as an example.
Yeah.
Can you remember how much a packet of frogs was? Was it 4 or 5?
Something like that. Yeah.
And how many did we get in a packet?
Pass.
They're about £1 each.
Yeah.
Well, you think how long it takes him to make them.
Yeah.
Plus he's had to design them.
Yeah.
Plus he's had to buy the plastic, the colours. If anybody kind of like goes, oh, I can't afford that, then I think you need to look at yourself because you're not buying a lure, you're buying a process and
100%.
a finished article.
Yeah.
And I think this is where this entitled society, mate, I get so fed up with it because it's like, what do people expect?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's too expensive. No, it's not. If you don't support your local lure producers or things produced in this country or things produced in Europe by people who have put time and effort in, you're actually destroying the whole foundation of the sport.
I think what people struggle to understand is there's a huge difference between too expensive and not in your price range. They're two totally different things. I don't look at a Ferrari and go, that Ferrari's too expensive. It's out of my price range.
Yeah.
I can't afford a Ferrari. That's fine. I don't buy a Ferrari. That's the way you got to compare it. And I know I'm going extreme there.
No, you're not, mate. I look at people that go, oh, I need a new car. And I go, why?
Yeah.
I need a fresh one.
Yeah.
Well, my Beamer out there, how long has that been running for? 15 years. Because it's a bit like the reels.
Yeah.
And I get it, serviced and MOT'd. No oh shit, like it
Yeah.
lasts me a bit longer.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a society where people it's disposable.
Yeah.
And they want blingy new things because it gives them a false sense of who they are and where they are.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing's wrapped up in it. Okay, so Tom Moore is a good example. I just think what he does is he's people like him in this country, and there aren't many of them,
No.
should be celebrated.
Yeah.
And I know he's a friend of mine, so I'm slightly biased, but what they're doing, they are making their own designs. They're not copying even the mould. So when he started off, he was learning the process. Yes, he bought moulds from America. He's realised that he can design better products.
Yeah.
But he's had to invest in a CAD machine, the tools to cut, and these tools break every time he makes a mould, and the mould goes wrong.
Yeah.
So it's
and the time he's invested in learning it as well. It's not something you just pick up and do. There's so much more to it than just doing it. It's all the out. Same as what we're doing here. If people was to see the time you put in behind the scenes to get just us here and this doing what it's meant to do, you don't see it. You only see the final product. Which when people watch this video, they see the video. They don't see the time that's put into getting the video to there. And it's the same with Tom. Yeah, they see the lure and they go to the lure and they hold the lure up and go, "Oh, is that worth X amount that I paid for it?" Forget that. That's almost secondary. It's everything that's got to that point.
Exactly right. I mean, let's just use a podcast for an example. The last 2 or 3, you'll notice things are evolving, and the quality's gone back a step or two because we're using new tech, but it will then advance again.
Yeah.
And this is what the lure builders do. So my next question to you is, and this might be a little bit, how can I put it? It might be, some people might get upset.
Yeah.
I know some companies in this country that just buy in stuff from China and repackage it.
Yeah.
Is it given a term? It's not drop shipping, is it? That's different.
No, drop shipping is different. No, I don't think it's really given a term. No, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I just think that's a weird one. So if you're buying in a product that you know that you've got no knowledge of, as in it's a shad or a worm, and repackaging it, where does that sit?
So I think there's 2 different ways you can look at that, and there's 2 different ways of doing it. There is that way, simply as I'm just going to order some stuff from China, I'm going to repackage it, and I'm going to send it and just sell it for a little bit of a profit, make a little bit of quick money on it, and blah, blah, blah. The other way you can look at it, which I know a few companies that do, that how they work it, they're in contact with these factories. They will order lots of samples and find something that's the best version of what they want. It won't just be a case of ordering the cheapest or one I can get straight away. And there is actually some sort of
quality control.
Yeah, and some research and some development in R&D in it. Now they're looking into what's the best thing, and they'll go back to the factory and go, right, this was good, but this was wrong. I need this instead. And then
that's slightly different, though.
That's different. Yeah. So there's 2 different sides to it. There was a couple of sort of lure distributors in the country that a couple of years ago were selling copies of well-known baits, and they're doing quite well for themselves now. But that's how they started. They started by doing exactly what you're saying, going on to AliExpress or Alibaba is probably one they use. Alibaba is a business-to-business one, so it's not like you would just go and order a couple of packs of lures. You would go and buy 1,000 or 500. So they would go on there, they'd buy them in bulk, they'd have their own packaging, they'd just repackage them and sell them for their own means. I don't really get that. I don't really understand what the benefit, what they add in, what value they add into A, the product, or B, the community. That's what I don't get.
The thing, it's just to make money, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think you've got to be very careful because there's lines to be, there's different lines to go with this, and there's ones that are just doing it for a personal gain, and there's others that are actually, they are, all right, they're not making them, they're not physically making the lures, they are just getting them brought in from usually China. But there is more to it than just ordering the first thing or the cheapest thing. They say they actually do put some effort into it.
Now, conversely, I can totally understand why some guys have set up businesses ordering tungsten.
Yeah.
Because they've gone through a process of working out which is the highest quality they can get for the right price.
Yeah.
So 9/7, I buy my tungsten from there.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Does exactly what I want it to do.
Yeah.
And I should imagine Dan Sales has spent a long time going through working out which is the best tungsten.
Yeah.
I know Tom Moy gets tungsten out, and I'll get the smaller stuff off him as well. And again, I've seen it. I know what I'm getting. I love it. I have looked on these sites to try and bypass these companies, if I'm being honest with you, because obviously I want to get...
You want lots of it?
Lots of it.
Yeah.
The websites are awful.
Yeah.
I never know if it's exactly what I'm getting.
How much easier is it just to pay someone else to do it for you?
Oh, exactly. And that's my mindset. And I just think, do you know what? This is quite expensive, but I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And these guys have spent the time and can be asked to have gone through all the crap.
And there's consistency to it.
Do you want, I know one other thing before I finish.
Yeah, go on.
Some bigger companies have tried to actually kibosh this by saying their tungsten isn't of a certain quality.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, I know how these factories work. It all comes from the same bloody factory.
Yeah.
Don't try and pull the wool over our eyes.
Yeah.
So like I was giving the example of these ladies producing the silver foil or the certain zips, whatever. There'll be only a few factories making tungsten.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, they're not going to make that pure one for that company, and that it just doesn't happen. It has to get melted at some high temperature as well. They're just going to be chucking this stuff out, and it's going to be the same quality. But people are trying to stir the pot and make it what it isn't. You've got to be careful what you read because it's not quite reality.
There's always more to it than you probably think. There's subcontext within subcontext, and people are always looking to get their own foot up in some way or another, I think. And you've got to be a little bit careful about that.
Yeah. Right. We're doing all right. That was 25 minutes we're talking, because Charlie came up with this idea and I'm thinking we're never going to talk about this for 25 minutes. But I think we've...
It's an interesting one, and it's actually something Tom touched on when we had him on, I think, very briefly, or it might have even been off air. I don't know if we did it on air. And you see that Dan Sales is one that comes up in this conversation quite often because, some of the soft plastics he sells, you can find comparable stuff on these websites. But like Dan says, and Dan won't mind me saying this to a camera because he says it quite openly on social media, he's spent that time behind the scenes talking to the factories. Just because these lures look the same doesn't mean they're made with the same materials, doesn't mean they're made to the same quality. So he spent the time doing the research for you. So you might be paying a little bit more than if you buy these similar looking lures, but you're getting the quality that Dan's put the time into to actually do the research and development with. So I think it's quite an interesting topic, and I think it's one that I think the general community could have a good conversation about if people are a bit more open about it. It tends the likes of Wish tends to be a bit of a dirty word.
Money's tight, and I can understand people want to take shortcuts.
I totally get it.
Yeah, I do get it. However, I always use the analogy of my local tackle shop. I never use it for anything.
No.
But it serves the community of anglers, like serves bait. Alex Bates' shop is a bit different. It's on a fishery. He is going great guns. Yeah. But it is slightly similar. But the one down the road, Millview Tackle, right? If that closes down, where do the local anglers get their maggots from? Yeah. That's in the back of my head. That's what I'm always thinking. Don't care about lure fishing. Don't care about predator fishing. The tackle shop is where a lot of fairly lonely old men, because it tends to be old men, they go to have a chat. Yeah. And if they haven't got that,
what do they do?
What they do. And also, where do you get your maggots from? How do you go fishing? Yeah. What happens to fishing in the local community? Do people stop going? They will. The kids, they want to go fishing. They want half a pint of maggots. Yeah. Because they want to go and catch something. Yeah. So I think this is a bit of a no-brainer. I think everybody in the UK should support UK-based manufacturers and UK-based suppliers
wherever possible.
Well, yeah. There's no reason not to get all of it. No. I get all my braid from Tom. Yeah. Obviously, I use his lures. Wolf Creek, obviously, I get given their baits. I'm very fortunate. We buy Wolf Creek rods. Still got one left, guys, if you want it. Did you like what I did there? Good. But I just don't see the point. Once you've got quality stuff that you know that works, just get. It's like carp anglers. Yeah. Would they buy stuff from AliExpress?
Very, very, very infrequently, I would think. I'm sure there is. But carp anglers are very they're particular, I think. And I don't think it happens very often.
Look, camera's gone again.
Yeah. That means we've spoken for too long.
We've worked out the glitch on the second camera. Yeah. It's only on for 29 minutes, 59 seconds.
Which is a fantastic feature you want in a camera.
That's what the EU did for us with cameras.
What has the EU ever done for us?
Ballsed up my cameras, mate.
Yeah.
That one's not from the EU. It's a newer one.
Is it from China?
course it is. Everything's from China, isn't it?
But you bought it here in the UK.
Even
so
our little buxom blonde-haired assistants from China.
Yeah, blonde head from China.
And blow up.
Yeah.
You can tell we've
Is it
been
made from a superior material?
lifelike latex.
Yeah. Right. On that note of blow-up dolls from China, I think we'll call it a day. Thanks for watching, guys, and we shall see you on the next episode.